Hi, I'm Milena. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome to my Victober TBR. If you have missed my announcement for Victober 2025 where I shared that I'm a co-host this year, I will leave it in the cards above and you can watch that video. Do that before you watch this TBR to know what I'm talking about. If you're looking for any recommendations for these prompts, I have linked all the videos, announcement videos with recommendations in the description down below. This year there are 10 hosts, 10 prompts, but also different tiers depending on how many prompts you manage to do. Again, you can double up. I'm not doing that. And I am going for Dracula level because when it comes to Victorian literature, I do think I am inhuman. I might start a little bit early and a little bit late. We're going to try. So there are two books that are group reads, book club reads for me. So first we have Hester, which is the group read for Victober. The very last book Mary and I are going to read for the Thomas Hardy read along is actually his debut novel, and that is A Pair of Blue Eyes. Both of these books I'm going to fit within the prompts. I'm not only going to read novels because I have not completely lost my mind, but there are a lot of novels in this list. So let's start with prompt number 1. This is Cage Challenge and you have to read a book that features friendship. I looked up what A Pair of Blue Eyes is about because I didn't know. We follow Elfridge, who becomes entangled with two men, and I believe these two men are former friends. It says the former friends become rivals and Elfridge faces an agonizing choice. So she drives two friends apart, which sounds like a wonderful depiction of friendship for me. But this book I will have to read because we will have the live show in November. I might read it a little bit at the end of Victober so that everything is still fresh in my mind. I know not a lot of people love this, but we really wanted to end the Thomas Hardy read along with at least having read his debut novel. So this is going to be more curiosity than me expecting to actually really enjoy this. The second challenge is Katie's challenge. Read a work of Victorian literature that's not a novel. I'm going to read a book that I wanted to read last year already, but I didn't really have the time, and that is The Wonderful Adventures of Mrs. Seagull in Many Lands. This is set in the mid-19th century. She worked as a businesswoman and a nurse and went through a lot of different places to provide care, especially in countries who were at war. I'm really curious about this because she's an historical figure that we don't know enough about. So I'm very happy to put this on my TBR. Challenge number 3 is from Marissa. That is to read a book of Victorian literature where the character experiences a change in class. I'm going to read another Elizabeth Gaskell. It's really time for me to read another Elizabeth Gaskell novel, and this is Ruth. So this is Elizabeth Gaskell's version of A Fallen Woman. It says Ruth Hilton is an orphan and an overworked seamstress, an innocent preyed upon by a weak, wealthy seducer. When he heartlessly abandons her, she finds shelter and kindness in the home of a dissenting minister and his sister, who do not reject her when she gives birth to an illegitimate child. But Ruth's self-sacrificing love and devotion are tested to the limit by a twist of fate that brings her past back to haunt her. This event happening to her definitely changes her status. Again, I know this is not necessarily a favorite of people, but I'm very curious to see how Elizabeth Gaskell treats fallen woman trope, I would almost say, because we have of course Hardy who did that, which I really enjoyed how he did that. And having read Elizabeth Gaskell, I feel like maybe she had a little bit less sympathy for women in this situation, but I'm not sure. I'm a bit apprehensive, but still Elizabeth Gaskell is someone I read every Victober, and this was my next novel by her. And then challenge number 4 is of course to spot the Empire, so I'm not going to pick another book for that, but I will be keeping my eyes open whilst reading. Elizabeth's challenge is to read from an underrated woman writer from the Victorian era, so I'm going to read The Romance of the Shop by Amy Levy. I'm going to read this on ebook because the paperbacks or just the physical copies are a little bit harder to get. This is about a group of sisters who are orphaned, they lose their father, and they decide to open a shop in London to keep themselves afloat. And I think they open a photography shop, so I feel like this is really going to play in the more modern parts of the Victorian era, although this is a bit later Victorian. This novel was written in 1888. Oh, it says, in the 1880s, photography is not only growing in popularity and accessibility, but those with a critical eye are elevating the medium associated with quick and steady cash into a true art form. Why have I not read this book before? I truly don't know, because the description sounds right up my street. Somehow I missed filming prompt number 6, and that is to read a Victorian work that discusses education. And I'm going to read The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins, which has been on my Victober TBR before, I won't lie. I know that the main character in this book is an art teacher. Challenge number 7 is to step back in time, to read a historical fiction from set in a different era. So written in the Victorian era, but it's set in a different era. And I'm gonna read from an author that I'm just not ready to give up on. I think I will read most of his books, even though I don't really like his books. That is Charles Dickens. A Tale of Two Cities is set during the French Revolution, which is the 18th century. And it's so partly it's set in France during the French Revolution, and the other part it's set in London. It says it vividly depicts a revolutionary Paris running red with blood. Beautifully described, and a London where the poor starve. In the midst of the chaos, two men, an exiled French aristocrat and a dissolute English lawyer, are both redeemed and condemned by their love for the same woman. Oh, I didn't know the core of this story was a romance. Not sure how much I like that, to be honest. I really love the idea of having these two storylines. Dickens and romance doesn't necessarily do it for me. Now I'm a bit more scared. Let me know. Do you think I would like A Tale of Two Cities? It does fit the prompt perfectly. Right, and then we come to my challenge. So let's go spin the color wheel. I landed on purple, and I'm going to read a book that is both kind of pink and purple, but the overall line of the book is purple, so I think this would work. And that is Moonfleet. I've had this in Milena's bookshop, and that was still open for a while, and I was always fascinated by it, but I never read it myself, and it sold quite quickly, so I never had really time to just pick one for myself and read it. And Moonfleet is a bit of a boyish adventure story. I think it's also very tragic, and I think there's a lot of travel involved as well. It's a children's book. I don't know much more about it, but I think it would be nice having all these adult novels on my TBR to also have a children's book, potentially listening to the audio. Boyish adventure story sounds like it really could go both ways. Generally people quite enjoy this one. So yeah, that is the one I'm choosing for my own prompt. Challenge number 9 is to read a work of Victorian fantasy, and I read Dracula quite a while back and I had so much fun with it. I was so pleasantly surprised at how fun the book was. And this edition has Dracula by Bram Stoker, but also a bunch of short stories by Bram Stoker. The internet calls it the missing chapter, which is called Dracula's Guests. I think I'll read the introduction of this book to know what they really mean by that, if it was supposed to be part of the book. Nevertheless, I feel like a vampire is very much a fantasy element. If you want to know a little bit more about what a Victorian fantasy is, I would recommend watching Roy's announcement video. I'm sure he will explain it eloquently in there. But yeah, this has more short stories by Bram Stoker, and I'll just read as much as I feel in the mood for to fulfill this prompt. The final prompt is prompt number 10, and this is Catherine's challenge, where you have to match the Victorian novel that you read. You have to find a relation to Jane Austen, and I'm going to pick our group read for this, which is Hester by Margaret Oliphant. Catherine sent in our group chat of Victober host an article where Margaret Oliphant and Jane Austen are put next to each other, are compared together. So if she gives a green light to match it with our group read, then that is what I will do. Again, watch her announcement video if you want some recommendations of books that will work for that prompt. Meaning for this Victober, I have 9 books on my TBR. These I have physically, and the other ones I'm reading on my Kindle. I will also be listening to audiobooks, which I think is such a wonderful way to help you read Victorian literature, because some authors use a lot of dialect, especially authors like Charles Dickens, who has a lot of lower class characters in his books as well, and it's very helpful when a narrator helps you understand how to pronounce everything, and it's much easier to understand, in my opinion. So I'm very excited to start this Victober. If you're also joining with Victober, let me know what book you are most excited about. I would love to know that. For now, I will see you very soon with some updates on my Victober reading. I hope that you have a lovely, lovely day or evening, and I will see you soon. Doei!